Peter Jennings is a celebrated writer, broadcaster, television program host, singer. He's written professionally for over 40 years, was a recent guest on This Week in America, discussing his critically acclaimed Shark Assault, an amazing story of survival written with Nicole Moore. His Be My Guest TV program, an in-depth show called the Canadian equivalent to Charlie Rose, known for his skill at getting his guests to open up and share. An in-demand entertainer specializing in interpreting the Great American Songbook, standards that stand the test of time. And his newest book is Why Being Happy Matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your life. 37 people from around the world, some well-known, others just normal folks, who reveal how to get happy, especially in unhappy times. Peter Jennings back with us on This Week in America. Peter, welcome back. It's great to talk with you today.
Rick, thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to talking with you, and you embarrassed me with all that introduction. I didn't know I was capable of all
we're going to have you come back and sing sometime. That'll be the next program. It was great having you and Nicole on the program talking about the book Shark Assault. In fact, you talk with Nicole in this book, Why Being Happy Matters. And it's interesting, you are not, and you talk about it in the book, by nature a really happy-go-lucky type of guy, where you walk around with a smile on your face. And you say that you had a nagging disposition to feeling blue, which so many people can relate to. Talk about that, and then how out of that came this book.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think sometimes I'm guilty, as many of us are, Rick, about just kind of thinking too much. And I'm not anxious. I don't have panic attacks. It's nothing like that. But I would say that before embarking on this book, my kind of go-to position was thinking a little too much and being a little bit too much down. I can tell you, though, as a result of writing this book, and I wrote it over about a 5-year period, my disposition has changed. My go-to way right now is happiness. That's what it's all about. And I think, Rick, we are in around the world, I think we're in a situation where happiness really can be a game changer. And we really do need more of it. You know, people are, well, they're wondering in your country, you know, what's Donald Trump like going to be as president? What's going to happen in Britain and Europe with Brexit? What's happening with these people coming in from Syria, the war there, ISIS, etc.? There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think an antidote to that certainly is finding happiness in your life, maximizing it, and really making it a part of your day-to-day existence. It really is a game changer, and it can really energize your life.
You know, it's interesting, and we'll talk about some of the individuals in the book. You talked with 37 people, and not all of these people, when you start reading the story, it's like, why would they be happy? And it's like, okay, even if you're dealt some difficulties along the way, you can turn that around and find some happiness there. First of all, I mentioned 37 people. How did you go about deciding who you were going to ask? What was the criteria? What were you looking for in the guests that you were talking to?
Well, you know what, Rick? That's a great question because it was all over the map. The guy that really got me going on thinking that there was a book here is a guy by the name of Rick McHale. And let me just tell you very quickly about Rick. He was born into a family where his mother was a really bad alcoholic. As a result of that, there was a lot of discord and arguments in the family between his mother and father. Then his mother dies of breast cancer. His sister dies of breast cancer. Rick marries his university sweetheart, Heather. She gets ovarian cancer and dies. To try and get himself around this, he calls his best friend Mike. They're both motorcycle guys, and he says, fine, let's go down to the U.S. on a trip, and I'm going to forget all this bad stuff. And within the first week, Rick comes around the corner, and there's his buddy Mike lying dead in the middle of the street he had wiped out. Rick returns home. He consoles Mike's widow, Diane, who he knew cautiously. They begin a relationship, but the fates are not done with Rick. She gets cancer and dies. Now, Rick, I'm sure you're sitting there saying, this guy is happy. But indeed, he is a happy guy. And what he told me is that you just have to accept that life can get you down. And it seems to me when things go wrong, human nature gets some folks asking, what did I do to make that disaster happy? But me, I say, what did I do to get this far and achieve so much? How can I now move ahead? So there's an example of a guy who really on the face of it did not appear to be happy at all, and yet he is a very happy individual. But then you can go with another guy who I spent fascinating time with, John Robbins. And John is famous for having walked away from the Baskin Robbins fortune. His father was grooming him to take over the billion-dollar business. And John just didn't feel right about selling that kind of product to his fellow man. So he eschewed it all. But today, John is a very happy man. He writes books, he lectures, he blogs, he talks about eating healthy diet and that kind of thing. And he's a very happy guy. So, there's a real difference between Rick and John. Rick, I just kind of fell upon, as I say, the more I talked to him, the more I thought there's a book here. And, you then start, Rick, you start investigating. Who would I want to talk to? What various types of people? John Robbins, I used to read on the Huffington Post. And I thought, this guy seems really happy. By the way, John had lost his entire net worth with the Bernie Madoff scandal.
I was going to mention that because I'm reading that, and it's like, wow, this guy walks away from ice cream, which would have made me happy. I mean, right there, my life is fine. I've got ice cream whenever I want it. And then the Madoff situation, and Madoff ruined lives, just destroyed lives, yet John bounces back and is able basically to put things in perspective and go forward with a level of happiness in his life.
Yep, he has, and he has told me that he'll probably not be able to recapture the wealth that was lost, but he started to build things up again. And he said, quite frankly, Peter, to me, money does not buy happiness. He said, I appreciate money for getting me the basic things in life that I need, but after that, it's got diminishing returns. So really fascinating guy. And the other thing, Rick, that I would do is each time I would seek somebody and they'd agree to be interviewed, at the end of the interview, I would say to them, is there anybody that you know that you consider to be really happy? And pretty much everybody would provide me with a name. And so the book just expanded from there. 37 people in all, in the U.S., Canada, Europe, Asia, and Australia. It's been quite a busy piece of work.
Well, and it's interesting because you get that international perspective. It's not just in the United States, and our situations here are unique to people in Asia, and you've got like a global view of happiness and how important happiness has been to these people. The book is Why Being Happy Matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your life. The author, Peter Jennings, our guest on the program. His website is very simple, whybeinghappymatters.com. The book's available, of course, at Amazon, all the usual outlets, and you can link on directly to Peter's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. As you can imagine, talking to 37 different people, you get a unique perspective. And I love, is it Chuck Leavell? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are,
keyboardist with the Rolling Stones, and you're thinking, why wouldn't he be happy? He's got money, he's got fame. Yet it's a special relationship with Jimmy Carter and doing humanitarian work that brings him maybe his greatest level of happiness.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. He was probably the happiest guy of the 37 people I talked to. He was probably the happiest guy because when I began talking to him, I said, okay, Chuck, how happy would you call yourself? And he said, Peter, I'm probably the happiest guy in the world. And he's got a big smile on his face. On each interview, I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate themselves, 1 being unhappy, 10 being, pretty much off the scale. Chuck said, I'm an 11. So this is a guy who he gets great happiness out of his family, out of his music, and out of conservation. As you said, he hangs with Jimmy Carter. They talk about conservation. He's a very, very happy guy. And as you say, he's got money, he's got Grammy Awards, he's worked with probably all the best bands that ever existed, and he's a go-to keyboardist for the Rolling Stones. So, yeah, very happy man.
The book is called Why Being Happy Matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your life by Peter Jennings, our guest on This Week in America. It's interesting as you read this, and then you have several experts who actually talk about this. Happiness pays dividends, doesn't it? I mean, it not just financially, but in all areas of your life, it leads to better relationships. It leads to better decision making. A lot of positives by having this attitude, by living a life of happiness.
Yeah, very definitely. Part of what I did was I talked to 7 Ph.D.s who are independently actively involved in pursuing what's called positive psychology, and that is happiness. And each of them is devoting quite serious study. I mean, somebody was asking me the other day, Rick, they said, I mean, happiness, isn't that a little bit kind of airy-fairy? And I said, no, there are a lot of people doing serious investigatory work into happiness, including Deborah Bishop from Oregon, one of the ladies I interviewed, who's doing work on whether there is a gene, a happiness gene, in that some of us are probably hardwired, born to be happy. Others may not have that gene and are born to be a little more melancholy. But each of these people that I interviewed really enlightened me with their insights, especially Dr. Tal Ben Shahar from Israel. He has been teaching happiness, lecturing in happiness at Harvard. And Rick, I mean, you're aware of all the great courses that are available at Harvard. Listen to this. Dr. Tal Ben Shahar's course on happiness at Harvard is the #1 course
I was
at
going to say,
Harvard.
you can't get a chair. I mean, if you sign up now and maybe 3, 4 years from now, you can actually get into his course.
That's right. And at the University of Pennsylvania, you can get an MA, you can get a master's in happiness, positive psychology. That's how big this has become.
You know, it's interesting in reading about the doctor. He talks about social support. In some countries where it's more prevalent, maybe in others, there seems to be a level of happiness. And I found that interesting as I'm reading that. How important, and maybe we overlook that, the role of family and friends and appreciating them,
Yeah.
how important that is in happiness.
Yeah, it's hugely important. In fact, all of the PhDs that are doing work on this, each one of them stressed to me the importance of community. Right now, this year, 2016, the #1 country in the world rated for happiness is Denmark. #3 is Iceland. And you say, well, wow, what's the US? #13. Well, why are Denmark and Iceland so far ahead of us? And the fact is, they are committed to community and, as you say, Rick, to family. Really interesting book, Dr. Robert S. Putnam from the JFK School of Government at Harvard. He's written a book called Bowling Alone. And he posits that we used to be members of bowling leagues, and we used to have investment clubs and cooking clubs and book clubs. And a lot of that's going by the wayside. Church attendance is down. And what we're doing is replacing these relationships that we used to have with people and closeness with this helter-skelter life where we need to acquire things. And he said if you look at places like Denmark and Iceland, there's a much greater sense of community. And that really brings about happiness. It's quite fascinating.
And you talk about one source of trauma now, and a fairly new phenomenon is FOMO, the fear of missing out. And this is like wanting to stay in touch, but not do it in the way through the church groups and the bowling leagues and all of that. It's all in a virtual world that we live in, and we don't want to miss any of it, possibly risking our happiness in the process.
Yeah, and yet that kind of thing does not create happiness. I was talking recently with a psychotherapist here in my local town, and she said virtually all of the work she is doing now, all the clients that she has, they're all dealing with anxiety, panic attacks. I was talking with my daughter-in-law who teaches grade 5, and I was saying, Meg, how are the kids this year? I said, Peter, they're all awful. They're all really stressed. I said, but man, these are 10-year-old kids. Why would they be stressed? And she said they're all getting it from their parents. Their parents are all over anxious, and they're pushing it down to their kids. The other thing is that a number of studies on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, everything, it is showing that people who rely on social media are much greater to deal with depression and anxiety than those who just kind of keep it on the sidelines. You know, people talk about being friends on Facebook. Well, you're not really friends. And are you really linked in with LinkedIn? I don't think so.
So true. Why being happy matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your lifetime. I'm going by way too quickly. Peter Jennings, our guest on the program. The website, whybeinghappymatters.com. Link by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. This book has really changed you, hasn't it? I can tell in talking to you in the enthusiasm, the passion you have for this, and knowing the background, again, not a happy-go-lucky type of guy like most of us. It's like, okay, here's the silver lining. There must be a cloud around here somewhere. This really has changed you.
It has. Yeah, it's really been an eye-opener. Both books, actually, because getting to know Nicole Moore and writing about her story, the lady who was attacked twice by a bull shark, lost her arm, nearly died, and then meeting all these people in the happiness book, it really has had a very positive effect on me, and it's helped me understand, Rick, that each of us is accountable for our own happiness. We can control how we feel. We do have the power to choose happiness for ourselves. And one way to do that is just to absorb the habits, I suppose, of others who are happy. You know, and I've learned that we can more greatly appreciate the advantages we have, focusing on the things we have, not what we don't have. These are the things that generally happy people do, and you can emulate that. And I have done that, and I've brought a lot of happiness into my life because of it.
In the title, Why Happiness Matters, you remember why being happy matters, because happy does matter. And I like the power of joy. And when you think about it, there really is power in joy, isn't there? And sometimes we give it up too easily to other people who interfere with our lives, and suddenly we're giving them basically control of our lives and our emotions.
Yeah, that's so true, Rick. There is power in joy. It really is a game changer. And for those people who, are feeling, and believe me, I'm no expert, and I don't set myself up as any kind of a therapist, but I can tell people this. For those people who are experiencing anxiety or depression or despondency, I wrote this book to be two things. One, to be inspirational, because I think each of the 37 people does inspire. But more particularly than that, I wrote it to be a resource. And if people wish to buy the book, you will see the one key thing I learned from each of the 37 people that I talked to. I list some happiness breakthroughs. I do list Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar's 7 happiness lifestyle things. So there are things you can do to bring happiness into your life if you are down.
It's interesting. We mentioned Rick McHale and his story, which was one of the leading motivators for you to write the book. There was another story in there, another episode, and we'll close with this because it's interesting, and people can relate again to this. You were at a cocktail party with friends, and I think the fictitious names of the friends, Julie and Rob. They went through a situation which most of us would find embarrassing, would not want to talk about. It didn't steal their happiness. They joked about it and went on with life. Talk about that.
Yeah, and this was a few years ago, really before cell phones and whatnot, but I met up with this couple at a cocktail party, and they said, just big smiles on their face, oh, by the way, if you're calling us, don't bother, our phone's been cut off. And I said, what? Well, I forgot to pay the bill, and Rob thought I'd paid it, I thought he paid it, and, nobody paid the bill, and they're both laughing. And I remember thinking at the time, Rick, had that happened to me, I would not be laughing. First of all, I never would have brought it up. I'd be too embarrassed. Secondly, if someone else brought it up, I'd be kind of running for the door, feeling like a fool. And this couple they just laughed it off. They thought it was very funny. They got the phone back on right away. They were not stretched for money, but they just kind of made a mistake. And I remember thinking, wow, I'd like to be like them. It was shortly after that I began talking to Rick McHale, and those two elements, you're absolutely right, they caused me to say, you know what, I'm missing it on happiness here, and I bet a lot of other people are, and I think happiness does count. I think there are a lot of people I ought to talk to and see if I can't get this working for us. So it did.
Excellent reviews for the book. Will there be a part 2?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I've had people contact me saying, hey, I'm a happy person, I'd like to be interviewed. And I'm actually I'm working right now on a fascinating book called Pushing the Boundaries, in which I'm interviewing people who have really I think most of them are very happy. They are people who don't color between the lines and are prepared to go outside that. So yes, I think there'll be a volume 2.
Peter Jennings, our guest on the program, talking today about his book, his new book, Why Being Happy Matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your life. The website is whybeinghappymatters.com. Information, of course, at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. While you're looking for Peter's work, be sure you check out Shark Assault, an amazing story of survival, the book that he wrote with Nicole Moore. And if you go back to thisweekinamerica.us and go to our archives for YouTube and for iTunes, you can watch and listen to that program we did a few months ago with both Peter and Nicole. As usual, you hit it out of the ballpark. This book is an excellent read. So much valuable information there. Coming to us from people, as I mentioned, all across the world, all different perspectives, on how to take those little setbacks in life and how to enjoy them. And if you think you need fame and fortune to be happy, if I can just get a little more money, I'll be happy. Really doesn't work that way. And you'll find out great stories in the book, Why Happy Matters. Discover how the power of joy will energize your life. Peter, it is always a pleasure. Look forward to having you back in the program.
Well, Rick, thank you very much. Indeed, the pleasure is mine. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I hope your viewers and listeners enjoy Why Being Happy Matters.
It is an excellent read. The website, Why Being Happy Matters. And again, you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Peter's website. You're listening to This Week in America. We're right back after these messages. Please stay tuned.